of the modern day athlete with always my co-host, Mr. Amobi, getting off one call, getting ready for a game, preparing for another call. This man is a real life mogul. Thank you for your time, brother. How's the day going?
You know what it is? It's going well. It'll be real better if we get this win tonight.
There you go.
But yeah, every Wednesday, we back at it. So I'm happy to be back on Bank Shots with you, as we always do. And what you got going on?
We're rolling, man. Best quote I heard this week, and I think it was in like a Denzel Washington speech, was "You'll never see a U-Haul following a hearse." And that spoke to me not just from like a financial perspective, but also looking at athletes. Like, hey, how much of you is going to follow you after your career is done? That is something that you have to be attuned with. And as we go through our stories, today we're going to talk about a swimmer who has hit some hard times and is not a great example, a young football player who is turning out to be a true role model. And then we're going to dive into what makes the modern day athlete so appealing and so captivating in the marketability of it. But that, to me, that quote just has stuck in my head as we kind of transition. So as I look at this Ryan Lochte story, which is so interesting because an article came out about a year ago where he was on this new show with Alex Rodriguez, and it was getting back in the game, and it was going to support athletes who have fallen on tough times. Quick recap, Ryan Lochte, obviously one of the most prolific swimmers of our time, 12 gold medals, and then hit that scandal in the Olympics where he started or a story came out that him and some other people were held up at gunpoint and just some issues came. And from that, he lost a lot of his endorsements and a lot of his contracts. But as he was trying to bounce back and get back with Alex Rodriguez, you saw this notion of, well, what was your issues? What was your problems? And they started to play through some of the things that he needed to correct. Fast forward a year, this next article is around one of the offerings Alex Rodriguez connected him to. I believe it was called Fit Plan. He was going to be on the app Fit Plan and go through workouts, but the payment never came. What are you taking away from this story, from a rising star, fallen star? Where are you on this?
It's really crazy, too, because I remember watching the episode back in the game with Ryan Lochte, and I was like, wow. For him to fall so on hard times, but also be able to bounce back just because of his level as an athlete, I was like, all right, it's great. The rise and fall of the modern day athlete, it's possible for anybody. But then to see this article that we talked about earlier, it just shows you the stipulations at hand when it comes to athletes and doing business. He's like, was he able to control his story? Because I know he was upset about how he was perceived on the show. So taking control of your narrative, and then from the standpoint of doing business, obviously it was for the show, but did he have a lawyer look over the contract? Like, how was the payment? Like, how come he's not getting paid if something was signed? Like that whole spiel. It's really interesting.
Speak on that from someone who you have signed contracts both as an athlete as well as an entrepreneur. Just talk about your first thought processes as you look at contracts these days, because that's your first one. You just kind of are so excited to have it. You're like, exactly. Give me the pen.
It's crazy. It's because when you're like on your phone and you like sign up for an app, you kind of just scroll. Okay, I click to agree. I'm good. You can't take that mindset as an athlete. You have to understand. I think the first thing I look for is, all right, what's the compensation? Obviously, you got to know what you're getting into, how much you're going to get paid, or the equity stake, whatever it may have from a compensation standpoint. Second, the roles and responsibilities within that contract. So essentially what would make that contract null and void? So if I messed up, or a contract for quarterbacks is if I'm playing sports and I get injured, contracts null and void. So what roles and responsibilities are required from the contract, and then the fine print. Any legal jargon that I may not understand, I'm sending it to my lawyer. Then I'm sending it to someone else that can look over it, because sometimes a contract could be one page, but Other times the contract is 20 pages. So you need to make sure you know what's on page 1 versus page 12 versus page 18. And I think that's really important. So not to say Ryan Locke didn't do that, but from what it looks like, it's important that if he signs something, then he can go to the court instead of the media and say, this is what we agreed upon and this is what I'm owed.
Those are excellent points, man. I just love how you be able to approach a topic like this. And you also touched on the idea of how fickle a brand can be. When you are a personal brand, you have to really attune to that idea that he signed a contract and he was expecting $15,000 a month for eyeballs and subsequently got suspended for 18 months for a B12 shot or for some kind of performance enhancement. And so when you look at these offerings lining up, you start to question, you're right, what were the legalities? What was the contract issues? But also, what are you doing? You got to stop shooting yourself in the foot, having these stories come out, having your bread and butter be taken away from you. What I took away from this was he went from making $1 million a year to having one endorsement deal being around $70,000. But what he mentioned was it'd been 2 years since he'd really looked at his bank accounts. And he said there could be anything in there down to nothing or $20,000. But that understanding, he was renting a Porsche for $1,000 a month. I loved the show back in the game. I love this storyline because it does touch on so much of the rise, the fall, and I'm hoping to see the rise again from Ryan. But as you look at this, definitely defining, as you look at marketing deals, what does the contract entail? Is there guaranteed money or is it based on eyeballs alone? And then you have to go through that second iteration of, well, then how am I going to generate those views? How am I going to get people to be interested? And I thought that was a really interesting one. And speaking about marketing on an app, you could take away and lead into our next story.
No, that's great. That's great. I want to ask you though, because you brought up a great point before. It just how often should you be checking your accounts? Obviously, with investing, you want to have a long-term approach, so you don't want to like look at it every day because we talked about day trading in past episodes. How often should you be looking at your account?
So when I was in wealth management, I was handling as an advisor. We definitely had weekly alerts. Withdrawals, deposits, big moves in the market, big moves in a specific account, especially if it's a brokerage account where we can harvest some losses or looking at the gains. So I think a weekly approach is aggressive. Daily, definitely not. But if I was going to have a continuous confidential relationship with money, I would look at the monthly. How did I end on a monthly basis? And why I say that is because I have, since my rookie year in the NFL, have lived off a lifestyle paycheck. I don't live based on how much money comes in or how much money I'm making. I live based on a set number that I've allotted myself. And so on a monthly basis, I can look at the end of the month and say, did I go over that number? Did I fall under that number? Am I right in tune? And so that gives me that burn rate that I love to talk to people about on a consistent basis.
Nah, thank you. I think it's important to touch on that because some people will throw their money and not look at it, and some people will look at it every day and go with the emotions. But like you said, next story. In terms of marketing, Tua Tagovailoa. I'm mispronouncing his last name.
Nice.
I tried. I think it was pretty good. Star quarterback from Alabama, first-round draft pick to the Miami Dolphins. He has said that he's saving the $30 million that he's making from his NFL contract and living solely off his endorsements. So I want to get your thoughts because I feel like this is a new trend. We've seen Rob Gronkowski, Saquon Barkley, even his fellow draft mate Joe Burrow talk about saving their NFL contract and then living solely off endorsements.
And it is a great message to portray. It's a great storyline. Young athlete, has the world by the strings, but is conscious enough to be seeing the bigger picture. That is the modern day athlete. There is a little bit of an asterisk here that Tua does have contracts with Adidas, Muscle Milk, Bose, Wingstop. So he's living off his endorsements. He's living off these apps that are paying him to be on and again, gain those eyeballs. So it is not like Jed Collins or Amobi are playing off of their endorsements alone. This is millions of dollars coming in still for these players. But the point here is they have a system, they have a method. They are looking at what financial success will mean to them, and they are beginning to prepare a system that, in Money Vehicle, we call it the money buckets. And when he says, my contract is going to future me, that's his future choice. That idea of paying himself first, to have that as a 21-year-old, the idea that, Ryan Locke did not have when he was 20 making $1 million, somebody has sat down Tua and said, this is the time to set up your life. And so when I hear these storylines, again, I don't want to downplay how disciplined or patient he is being with his finances. I just want to make that declaration. But I look at this and I say, if we can, as a group, focus this on how he has an account. And this is what I loved what he said. He said, I sit down with my advisor because I have a specific account for my spending. And that to me is his burn rate. That's his present choices. That's that number, kind of what I was just discussing, that he has set aside each month to live. And he said he's going to sit down with his advisor and go through the ins and outs of that account. So that to me means he is not only big picture thinking, but he is definitely building out his systems, and he's approaching it like an athlete. How do I achieve success? I build these habits.
No, I think that's all great points. I think what you stressed, and I know many people will be like, well, he makes millions of dollars through his endorsements, so obviously he can save his $30 million. I think the point is, putting it in a separate bucket, but also the fact that having another source of income. Whether or not you're making endorsement money, there's ways you can have passive income or a side hustle or, appearance fees. Every athlete can get appearance fees. And it may not be able to take care of your living expenses for the year, but it can knock away a grocery bill or a cable bill or internet bill. And I think some of the principles that we can take from Tua is those as well. And then go ahead.
I was just going to say, it also tickles me a little bit that he has $30 million for playing the game of football, and he may not see the field this year. Like, that is just...
It's unbelievable. Well, Fitzpatrick, he knows how to survive in the NFL.
Yes, he does. And you want to talk about personal branding, man. That beard has made him a household recognizable figure.
That's true.
But yes, I agree with you. I think the designation that, as you heard Tua speak and through the article, you heard his words and his quotes talk about his segmenting of what he sees his spend. I really think that plays into financial literacy. It plays into the financial empowerment mission you and I are both on for athletes. And if we can get the first round picks down to the free agents, the rookies to the veterans, to at least see through their finances. Again, I love that you brought up the diversified income, but the idea that I need to now accept my income from different streams and then be able to purposefully give each dollar I make an objective and a responsibility, that is making money go to work for you.
Perfect. And let's not get it twisted. He has spent money. I'm not sure if you saw the GQ, My First Million segment that he did. He bought his dad a nice little watch, and he bought his mom a car. So when you have it, I'm not saying spend it, but spend it within reason.
Spend it within reason and continue to find, and like he said, now if I want to go spend more, I have to earn more based on marketing, based on advertising, based on these apps. So I thought that was a really neat takeaway. This next one plays perfectly into what we are discussing, the modern day athlete. We saw an article come out this week around who were the most marketable athletes in the world. And I want to make that designation. This is in the world. Who, as an individual, there was another column around companies or brands or products that are marketable, but this was the individual. What did you see when you saw this list, and what did it make you think about how the evolution of athletes have become?
Well, first and foremost, shout out to all my fellow soccer players. We kind
There you
of
go.
take over Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, Salah. I was actually surprised.
13 of the top 20.
Yeah.
13 of the top 20.
So it just shows you how vast the world is in terms of like global outreach. And that's not to say that you can't be marketable within your local level or regional level, national level, or global level. There's a community for everyone, but I thought it was really interesting to see the impact that soccer had.
Mm-hmm.
From a brand perspective, I think it's really interesting to see. Obviously, performance, as you said in the past, performance leads to brand recognition, but also what people are doing with their social media platforms truly plays a role as well.
It absolutely is playing a role. It is not just being the top tier player. You look at baseball right now has completely fallen off the list. Why? It's because their top tier people are not right now out working at it. You don't see those kinds of guys. You don't see Mike Trout on Instagram or on Twitter or on anything like that he's out promoting the game as well as himself. I agree with you. Soccer blew me away that it was, and it is truly the world sport. So it shouldn't take us so far back. I thought it was also interesting that 2 of the top 10 were cricket players.
Yeah,
that to me, because they are identified by their country and their support. One of the other takeaways for me was this idea that MMA had a few members on the top 50. Boxing has all but fallen off. You look at back in the 90s, early 2000s, boxing was one of the top tier guys in each of, the top 5. 2 of them were boxers. Yeah. Baseball players, even football players. Early 2000s, there were a couple of football guys up there. But you look at where the NFL is so strong, it is because the image and the brand of the game is way above any individual player. And there are some great stars, but the game of football has supplanted it itself above the individual brands or even the individual teams. And so I really thought that those were some interesting realizations. And what it really drove home to me is you need to find your niche as a marketer, as an athlete. Who do I want to speak to? Again, cricket. I don't know the game very well. I don't know who they are, but they are identified by their country. They're identified by their sport. And they're not trying to be the greatest to everyone. They're trying to be the greatest to a specific niche and audience. And that to me, as we look at marketing, as you and I are both young entrepreneurs, I think that is perhaps the best lesson we get from this list is not just who they are, but where they're working and who they're working to get. Each of those marketing teams have specific audiences that they're going for.
No, that's a great point. And it leads me, I want to ask you, because you played in the NFL. Obviously, you have guys like Chad Ochocinco, who's been able to create a big marketing presence. Tom Brady. So T.O. How, as an NFL player in these leagues or environments where team environment is first, or like kind of like old rules, like where baseball. And I do want to make a point to Trevor Bauer, baseball player that's really doing a great job of kind of changing the narrative in terms of building a personal brand. But like, what advice would you have?
So it is so challenging. Number one, I think baseball and football get a little discredited because of hat and helmet. Everybody would always say football players had this curse of the helmet that they have to show who they are off the field because they're not, if Russell Wilson walked past you, you might be able to recognize him, but you might not because you just, you don't see him in real life. Yeah. And so it's challenging because the football idea, as opposed to basketball is me, unit, team. That's how the image of your goals goes. Football has to flip that, where you got to go team, unit, me. Everything you do and see is through that lens. And so when you look at somebody in the marketing, I actually just had a conversation with people in sports marketing around should practice squad players or should young athletes be paying for marketing advice and marketing services. And I said, practice squad, absolutely not, because it is just another arrow against them that their team is looking at and saying, this guy is not here for the right reasons. He's not serious. He's worried about how many Instagram followers he has. He has not fully committed. That is the counterculture mystique, is as a no-name, unknown player, you have to be very cautious and very conscious of this other figure you're trying to grow, because if it becomes a circus or a distraction, it is an immediate escape. And you look at Antonio Brown, who is identified as bringing a circus. You look at Tim Tebow, who everybody said maybe was good at talent, but was not worth the marketing attention that he was going to demand. And you have to weigh that. So as a former player, I always try to gauge, and you have very strict lines and guidelines you have to stay within.
Oh, that's a great point about the practice player. As like LeBron and most athletes say, like, keep the main thing the main thing. Once you, I would say, just be prepared for that moment when you break through. So do all the groundwork. You don't need a marketing agency. You don't need to hire somebody, but make sure you're prepared for when you do make that mark, that you can attack on all cylinders.
Last thing I want to point out on this list, because I then went to the sports and brands and teams list.
Yeah.
League of Legends, the esports, was ranked higher than almost all other sports. I even think it was higher than the NFL on worldwide marketability. So that blew me away, and it just shows you that list of 50 in the next 5 years, you're going to see an esports star on that top 10.
Yeah, I'm surprised Ninja's not there within 3 years.
Oh yeah, he will be.
Yeah. So, you touched on, athletes, understanding their value and the moves they're making. One athlete that's doing that tremendously, he's just building a whole conglomerate, Kevin Durant. So there's a really cool article, just dissecting his business empire from 35 Ventures. He has the business investment platform. He has the media empire with the boardroom. And then he has his charity contributions with the Kevin Durant Charity Foundation. Talk about, what he's doing as our athlete of the week.
So what I love about this is he did not become the modern day athlete until his stint with the Golden State Warriors. At Oklahoma City, even in Seattle, he was 100% focused on winning NBA championships, which I don't want to discredit, but it is just not the image that people and athletes are portraying these days. And so, again, that quote, you are always the average of the 5 people you hang around with. And you look at him, top tier, top 5 NBA player, was not modernized until the people around him were. And then what did he do first? He went and found his partner, Rich Kleiman. He found somebody who he said, I know I need what you have. You need what I have. That is a partnership. And so what I see him doing, you noticed the 3 different tiers that he is beginning to go out. But what else I loved is that he is not, he's in Silicon Valley and he has all the investment opportunities that you want afforded to you, but he's sticking close to home. You look at Overtime, which is a YouTube highlight of youth basketball players, highlighting some names called Zion and LaMelo. No big deal. Good calls on those. But then you look at an on-demand car service. I, as an NBA player, that is very accustomed to my lifestyle. A mobile market on private jets. That is a niche and an audience that, and you look at Acorn's Robinhood trying to empower more and more people, and even a fitness tracker. So what I love that he is doing is he is diversifying. He has 30 plus ventures that he has gone into, but he is also staying close to home and investing in things that he knows. And that is kind of the Warren Buffett. Invest in what you understand.
No, you hit the nail on the head. From his partnership with Rich Kleiman, I think, book tip of the week, Rocket Fuel.
There you go.
You have a visionary and then you have an integrator. So Kevin Durant's the visionary, Rich Kleiman's the integrator. And a lot of athletes are doing that now. LeBron James, Mav Carter, Chris Paul, and his and his integrator, Dwayne Wade and the lady from CAA. So you have a visionary, you have an integrator. And then, as you said, invest in what you know. As an athlete, the rule of thumb is if you can't explain it to somebody else, then you probably don't know about it. Last week we talked about athletes investing in tonal. You did a great job explaining that. You talk about investing in JetSmarter. Athletes charter private flights. JetSmarter athletes, take Ubers, whether it's Black or Uber, Uber X, whatever. Athletes hire deliberately for food. When you hit Postmates, invest in $1 million, solid return of $15 million. When they're traveling on the road and they don't like food or they don't want to go out, Postmates. So investing in what you know, it's a great example of why he's our athlete of the week.
And he is doing a tremendous job, not only on the court, off the court, and it is always neat for me to see Kevin Durant's life changed, his psychology, and now he is out to make that charitable impact and to truly go out and change the lives of many. We wanted to end today on a financial tip, and this is one that's near and dear because I just got done delivering a workshop around home buying, and it is such one of those questions and often overlooked ideas around what your mortgage payment is going to end up being. And the acronym I like to use is PITI. That's just not me. That's a financial acronym. I like to say I pity the fool. PITI. So your mortgage payment is actually going to be the principal, how much I borrowed or my loan. Let's say it's $500,000. My interest on that principal, let's say right now it's 4%. Historically, the lowest loan rates in our country's history going on right now. But then the second TI is so often missed. It is your property taxes. Your property taxes, which for a general rule of thumb will be about 1% of your home value. And then your insurance. So my homeowner's insurance, which is necessary to go and get a loan because the bank wants to have some kind of financial security and risk around that. So taxes and insurance will increase your mortgage $200, $500, $700 a month, depending on where you are and your home's value. Again, often overlooked, and when people start to plan on how much of home I can afford, they forget PITI will be included.
No, I love the tip. I remember when you brought it on for one of the things that we were going to talk about today. I was like, "What? Wait, what's P?" And then you broke it down. I was like, you know what? This is something I actually have gone through. I've bought a couple of homes or condos, whatever you want to call it, and like breaking it down in this acronym is really what it's all about. Because as you've seen, athletes only think about the property, or they only think about the interest, and forget the last two segments of when it comes to the home buying process.
Absolutely. And if you want to add in one more, it would be mortgage insurance if you are going to put down under 20%. So that's just another little tip. But Mr. Okugo, enjoy the game tonight. Go get that dub. Always appreciate you, brother. Bank shots.
Bank shots. See you next Wednesday, right on the dot, 30 minutes under.
We out.
One of you, Brandon.